So your first plan of action the next day is to resume sending HIMARS and attack on it. Just send these weapons whose only real threat is their reach. And so they can go into Russia itself, right? Like, so that's your ceasefire. And this is why I think the rest of the world is scratching their head. Like, who is this for?
Dan Welch, good afternoon to you, my friend. How are you?
Good to be on again.
Yeah, it's really great to have you. And I love your expertise on geopolitics. And boy, do we have a lot of stories. We're a little behind the curve, I guess, with Ukraine, what's going on over there, Ukraine, Russia, and the US. But haven't had you on to get your opinion. Let's give me your 30,000 foot here. What happened and what is happening with the whole Ukraine, Russia, US relations and the whole situation over there?
Well, it's hilarious because we say being behind the curve is dead on point, and it's kind of a microcosm of the whole Western perspective. I know what do you mean. Like we haven't talked. We were going to talk last week, right after that, the debacle in the Oval Office, and then we had this one yesterday, the day before. When was it, the thing about the ceasefire? And it seems like that's with the curve, or that's up to date, because that's what the people are talking about, what the news is. That's what drives the headline. Is he or isn't he? Is Putin gonna say yes? Is Putin gonna say no? And what Putin says is, well, we are still talking about, like, you are behind curve, you are on different curve, perhaps on different planets, other curve altogether. Like, there's no, I'm going to say what I said 3 years ago, actually, in 2007, at the Munich Security Conference. We need security guarantees. NATO is moving too far east. The people the West is trying to break up our country, steal our economy, and rule our people. We don't want that. We don't want that. Okay. Then go ahead to 2014 with the coup in Ukraine and the arming and rearming. I mean, they talk about rare earths. Nobody talks about the quantity of cement, right? There have got to be trillions of metric tons of cement that were poured on this Maginot Line, which seems to be about as effective as the original line, from Belarus down to Odessa, to split, to make sure that they could attack the Russian parts, the Donbass, and also threaten to invade Russia, having nuclear command posts underground in Mariupol. They were building this all from in the mid 2000s. Then you have 2021 when Putin gave this other speech and he said, look, we're talking about this directive again, security guarantees. Have you heard this being thrown around in the past few days? All this crap about security guarantees for Ukraine. How does Europe get security guarantees? How does Zelensky have security guarantees? It all started because Russia was telling the West for years that its security guarantees were being ignored, that they were trying to expand eastward inch by inch, country by country. All the Baltic, Nazi little statelets going on there with banning Russian faces, Russian hair, Russian vodka, everything Russian is just too Russian. And you have Kaja Kallas, I call Kallas, whose grandfather, I think, was in the SS. I mean, this is unbridled original Nazi BS, talking about still today, talking in the EU, and is the voice of the EU, like basically the foreign minister of this fake thing that isn't really a country, isn't really a government, doesn't have an army, but it's the EU, EU, and not me. How Russia still can be broken up, how having the USAID pay for congressional hearings on um, decolonizing Russia. I mean, that's the current.
Yeah.
That's the thing, that it's not that the Americans and Western partners are behind the curve. They don't even acknowledge that it exists. And
Yeah.
Russians, and basically the non-West, the rest of the world, most of the world, is watching this, scratching their heads and saying, "Oh, how do you're having a discussion? Wait a minute. It's your war. This is your war. It's a proxy war that you are running and manipulating and funding and arming. And some of the people you use are the actual Ukrainians themselves. And then NATO and all of Starmer and, Merkel or Schultz or Mertz or whatever Ertz they have in power now. Look, that's rare earths. They're talking about getting all their rare earths. If they work with the United States on this war, and not just since the special military operation, but going back to the Operation Gladio days. I mean, this is going back to the 30s, 40s, 50s. But then you meet with them in a special delegation to Saudi Arabia. We're going to meet in Riyadh and discuss how to proceed, to create a ceasefire. The U.S. and Kiev. Why don't you meet in Kiev? That's where the arms go to. Why don't you meet in Brussels or in Washington? That's where you're planning all this shit. Go ahead. Why? You're going to meet in Riyadh and then we're going to cease fire. Here's how you cease fire if you're on the same team of the other people running the war. Cease firing.
Right.
That was easy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe a little too overstated. Stop firing. And we will stop firing. The weapons? Oh, no. We're sending them again.
Yeah.
Wait, you just agreed today that you're going to have a ceasefire. So your first plan of action the next day is to resume sending HIMARS and attack on it. Just send these weapons whose only real threat is their reach. And so they can go into Russia itself, right? Like, so that's your ceasefire. And this is why I think the rest of the world is scratching their head. Like, who is this for? Is this is this an anime? Is this some sort of a fake, like fictional? Are you pretending? Or those Wild West towns where you had the facade of the buildings, but it was really held up for a movie set from behind? This is not a real thing. That's not how you promote, maintain, discuss, even describe a ceasefire. First of all, you do it in response. Mm-hmm. The other side is winning, has been winning for a very long time, and has never taken off the gloves. What they see is liberating, even reconquering, if you want to say that. But they didn't go into it like Fallujah or anything where you just raze it to the ground, turn it into molten glass, and paint stripes on, like Reagan said about Vietnam. We could paint stripes on it and be home in time for Christmas, if we wanted to. But they are reabsorbing parts of Russia. So their whole attitude, the principled attempt to prosecute the operation as they have done it has been very different. And they're winning in that regard. And they're doing the same thing. Talk about being behind the curve. They're doing the same things that they've been doing the whole time. Okay, yeah, ceasefire. Yeah, ceasing to fire is how you stop wars in general. Yeah, stop the military part of it. Well, okay, but obviously there's no reason to talk about it unless you're just faking for the press, unless you address the root causes. So we'll say, and I feel like Putin is kind of teaching the West how to write a research paper. Can you go back to that speech in 2007 in Munich? Ibid. That's how you refer. And then fast forward to the one I did in December of 2021. Ibid. Same shit, different day, right? No NATO, because that was the whole point, right? And no fake NATO. What? It's somehow different. They're gonna have different hats or something, and not be NATO, so that you have European troops with European bullets and European rifles guarding Ukraine, but that won't be NATO. That's not going to happen. That can't happen.
Yeah, I really want to push on that now. What's your opinion about that? Is NATO going to cease to exist? Because I don't see how NATO can exist without the US, number one. And then number two, but maybe they do. I don't know. And then, yeah, work that out for me. Then what is going to happen then? And are we still going to, is this fake? Are we still going to be involved or not? Meaning we, the US.
Well, this is one of the reasons I love listening to the Russians. My wife said the same thing. She said, God, it's the only adult in the room? Is he the guy? You listen to him to see what the real perspective is, because he's talking about it as if it's a real thing. And then you listen to the entire West and you say, they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. And it's not necessarily because you agree, but because they tell it like it is. And Lavrov said about this particular thing, because he was on with a bunch of Western bloggers, which was a great thing to do, actually, I think. But he said, no, I don't think Trump has any interest in scuttling NATO. No, he doesn't. Because he hasn't said it. And this is what it's so beautiful. He hasn't said it. He's hinted at them paying more money. We'll have your back if you pay a lot more money. And we're not going to get rid of NATO, but NATO will be different because it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was designed to keep, who was it, Curtis LeMay, or who was it who said, keep the Americans in, the Germans down, and the Russians out.
Yeah.
That was it. That's the basic idea. They had Nazis. They put Nazis in control of main parts of it right away. It was not a defensive alliance at all. They were part of the planning of what 100 cities could be targeted with nuclear strikes after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's over. The post-war period is different. Right now, NATO is in Afghanistan. NATO killed the Mumba. NATO is in Libya. So whereabouts in the North Atlantic are those people?
Yeah.
I'm not sure my map is correct, right? And the Asian, whether we're going to start, they're going to start getting interested in Taiwan. Well, it's okay. So you have this amorphous, basically fake UN army, pretending that it's a UN army when it's really a UN.
Exactly what it is.
But we don't need any UN, Security Council. That's a pain in the ass. Because then you have all those veto people. I hate that. So let's it's not that we're against international law. We just call it international rules-based order or some other crap we just made up. We get, is like word salad. It's an armified. That's what it is. We are in armification. What?
Mhm.
What do you? So that can't change in terms of what their real objectives are. But those objectives are changing for the US, for example. They care now about keeping China in check.
Yeah.
I think Europe isn't. What Trump wants is to take. He thinks the thing was a waste of money, waste of time, and a waste of focus. Forced Russia and China together, and ignored too much the pivot to China that is going to really make the difference for American oligarchs to make money by sneezing. Right.
Yeah.
And so we got to change this.
Well, that leads me to
Too late.
what happens now? What happens here with you, specifically with Ukraine and Russia and US?
So this is the thing. The reason that Putin's answers seem repetitive is because they are. It's the same things that they've said. We want guarantees. You're not gonna use this open Ukraine, the borderlands. You're not gonna use the borders as a battering ram to force your way into Russia and take over our economy like you did in the 90s, take over our election like you did with Yeltsin, a famous drunk who Clinton laughed at openly. And no, that's not going to happen. So that's what is weird is that Trump is pretending to be someone new. The people who voted for him, people who are sick of being lied to. So they voted against what they thought was the bigger lie. Good for them. I don't disagree with that. But as it turns out, the guy who has his hands on the steering wheel is a liar, is the latest face of oligarchy, the helmet of the imperial helm. And so he's lying too. And one of the things is that he was any different. That's the first lie, because he can say it in the same exact thing. It's like reading a Robert Frost poem. Wait a minute. You just said the opposite of that. You said you were Putin's worst enemy, and you were the one who sent patriots, and Obama sent sheets. So you were the anti-Russian. Oh, well, yeah, that's basically what you were. You were the face of empire. That's what you did for those 4 years. And now you're acting as if that's different. Then the other lie is that any oligarch, billionaire slash puppet of billionaires who gets his hands on the wheel is going to drastically change right away something that means so much to the people who put him there. That's just not true. And he doesn't say, there's nothing he says that is anti-exceptionalist, that is anti-imperialist, that does anything but say exactly what he says. America first, America first, America first. What we're going to see is zero change from the rest of the world, what they have done. The axis of evil, what do you call it? The axis of resistance, the new triad of Russia, China, Iran, and BRICS, and all of this is they are hardening their resolve to resist keeping the U.S. as the chief hegemon. And there's nothing actually that's kind of boring, because there's nothing very new about this. That the reason that they have held back is because it's like the crazy uncle at the barbecue. He's gonna don't piss him off, right? Because he's gonna start breaking stuff and swearing, and it'll ruin the party, and it will ruin the international global economy, which is very much integrated, much more so than ever. It has been. But we're not going to just dump all of our bonds, right? or junk all of our dollars. But slowly, Iran, China has been doing this. The other day, in response to one of the tariffs are stupid, like puppetry kind of stuff too. Like, oh yeah, well then, and so Canada divested of $400 billion worth of U.S. bonds. They will do the things that they were reluctant to do, and unfortunately for himself and for the U.S. empire and those who think it benefits them, Trump is accelerating that phenomenon. I think he only makes it worse by saying he's going to annex Greenland, invade Panama. Musk's friends are going to buy all the ports in Panama. The Chinese say, well, it's a damn good thing that we've negotiated a northern route with the Russians who have been working on icebreakers that can think ice gone. Like, it's like, we no longer want ice here. It is gone. Yes, is good ship, right? Yes. Then building the port at Chancay, which is just north of Lima, so that you have this massive receptacle for Asian Pacific trade that comes to the continent. Then you have the other Belt and Road Initiative, building highways and trains, high-speed trains, solar-powered maglev, 300 miles an hour to go to Brazil. So you've run the Panama Canal on both north and south, and you'll still getting Greenland doesn't help with that. Shutting Panama doesn't help with that. Those things are in their terminal stages, Andy. That's the thing that nobody seems, they want to catch you up. They're trying more. And this is another thing. Well, then we'll just go in punching with the tariffs and stuff. First of all, domestically, tariffs are like reverse taxes. They stop for regular people. We have a guy, friend of ours, it's like a drinking buddy, guy we know from the pub, who can pick up our file cabinets. We have school. We have a lot of old steel to get rid of. Last night he said, you know what? The tariffs hit. I just had a whole truckload, 2,000 pounds of steel. They wanted to give me $35. Said, I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, that's real life. And that's the thing that billionaires miss when you give them control over your money, your social security, your government. They don't know what it's like to live. And then in the greater world, they seem to be unaware that they've been on the longer end of the stick because of their imperial hegemonic warmongering for decades. They've gotten the better of getting resources cheap, take the stuff at gunpoint, make it, sell it back to you at a profit, so that every dollar in loan to Latin America yielded $2 in investment return or whatever. Like, and now they say, well, you have that weird narcissistic thing that Trump does personally, which is, we've been shut out. So, and it's basically just stupid, geopolitically and historically, completely wrong.
Yeah.
The U.S. has to look at development in Africa and Asia. What were they so far behind? Because they really are dumb, like all the racists say, or because they've been playing on a tilted field forever. And now you're going to say, well, with this tariff, that tariff, we're going to even the playing field. Well, what they will do is just play with each other and stop playing. All you're doing is hasten the demise of that idea, the broader idea, which is firmly based in basically racism. It is hegemonic exceptionalism. we're better, we deserve more. That's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's really simple, and we're running out of
Yeah.
that's the simplistic way of you can branch each of those out in all of these different uh, uh, military, economic, all of the crises that are everywhere, and see that this is what is actually going on. And it's not going to work because it hasn't been working. And these are all like, what do you call it? What are death throes or spasms. Like this, okay, well then let's try this.
Mm.
And he kind of, and the people around him think that this is a new try. It is.
Yeah. Well, what I'd like to do is work out with you later, the next time I have you on, is just what does this really mean for natural resources? Because it seems like then there's a war, or it could be a proxy war, not an actual war, but a war over who has the goods. You know what I'm saying? And an actual war as well, um, because that seems to me, yeah, that seems to be what everybody's interested in. All the oligarchs, as you put it, they're interested in.
Well, look at ECOWAS and what's happening in West Africa. They're saying like all the gold is here, and we don't even have a way to process it, and it's all in France.
Mm.
That's bullshit. No. And so Traore has said, no, we're going to refine our own gold. And that's just the tip of the iceberg or Goldberg, whatever. And that is what, wow, that's
It was clever.
more levels than I intended. But that's what is going on. And that's why China is a better friend for them than the West. So we'll see. Yes,
We'll see.
I do. I want to talk about that more. I think it's
Dan Welch, great to have you on again, and love to do it again soon within the next week or so. Love to have you on
okay.
again.
Look it up. Good to see
All
you.
right, thanks, Dan.